It happened on a Saturday evening when the air outside felt heavy and still, yet inside our living room the tension was louder than anything. My wife had just come back from coffee with her ex-boyfriend. I didn't speak much as she came through the door, but I could feel my chest tighten. There was something about the way she smiled, so carefree, as though nothing mattered, that unsettled me. At last I asked, trying to keep my voice even, "Do you really have to keep seeing him?" She looked at me with that teasing grin, the same smile that used to melt me, but now it felt like a blade. Then she laughed, a short, cruel laugh that cut straight into me. "It's funny," she said, her tone laced with scorn. "You get jealous every time I see him. Maybe it means you're not enough." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. Her words hung there like poison, and I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to argue, to yell, to demand respect, but her laughter had already taken my dignity. She sank back on the couch, scrolling on her phone, still smirking at my silence. I turned away, fists clenched, and went into the bedroom, her words playing on repeat in my head. "Maybe you're not enough." That night I lay beside her, but sleep wouldn't come. My thoughts kept drifting to the early days, how she once admired my strength, how she used to say I was the only man who made her feel safe. Now she was measuring me against her past and I was losing. I realized I had handed her too much power over me, and she'd become brazen enough to humiliate me in my own home. The next morning I acted normal. I made breakfast, spoke softly, smiled when she mentioned she might meet her ex again. Inside, though, a fire burned. I decided not to confront her with rage. I wouldn't plead for her to stay. Instead, I'd teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Over the following week, I altered my habits. I stopped waiting for her texts, stopped asking about her plans. I started going out more, spending extra time at the gym, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected for years. She noticed, of course. One evening she asked why I hadn't answered when she called. I shrugged and said, I had better things to do. Her smirk began to fade as days went by. She started checking my phone, pretending it was casual. Once I caught her watching me as I dressed for a dinner with colleagues. "Who's going to be there?" she asked, her voice sharper than usual. I smiled politely. "Does it matter? You don't seem to care what I do." By the second week, she grew restless. She canceled her meetups with her ex and tried instead to make plans with me. But I no longer felt eager. I didn't refuse, but I didn't pursue her either. The balance had shifted, and she sensed it. That's when I set my plan in motion. Our wedding anniversary was approaching, and she'd been boasting to her friends about how I always spoiled her with presents and fancy dinners. This time I told her I'd arranged a special surprise dinner at an upscale restaurant. She was thrilled, glowing like a bride again, telling everyone to expect photos of the night. On the anniversary evening, she dressed beautifully, anticipating romance. I drove her to the restaurant, but when we entered, she froze. Seated at the reserved table were her closest friends, her parents, and even her ex, whom I had personally invited. Confusion spread across her face, but before she could speak, I stood up and lifted my glass. "Everyone," I announced, my voice steady. "Thank you for coming. Tonight isn't just about celebrating our marriage. It's about honesty." My wife once laughed in my face and said maybe I wasn't enough. She thought humiliating me was funny, but I wanted all of you here so she can explain why she still meets her ex and mocks her husband's love. The room dropped into stunned silence. Her face went pale, eyes wide. She stammered denials, but whispers had already started. Her parents looked horrified. Her friends stared at her with disgust, and even her ex shifted uneasily. I didn't let her recover. I took out a folder containing the divorce papers I'd prepared and set them before her. "You're right," I said coldly. "I'm not enough. Not for someone like you. But I will be more than enough for someone who values loyalty and respect. Tonight is the last time you laugh at me." She broke down, sobbing, begging me not to end things like this. But her tears were useless now. Everyone had seen her true face, and the humiliation she once enjoyed at my expense now belonged only to her. I walked out of that restaurant free, leaving her amid the wreckage of her pride. For the first time in a long while, I felt powerful again. She had laughed at me once, but now the world was laughing at her, and that was my revenge. Not anger, not violence, but the removal of the mask she wore and exposing everyone to the cruel woman she had become.